Have you ever wondered what really happens when you stop talking to a man? What's going on in his mind when your texts, calls, and energy suddenly vanish? Does he notice? Does he care? And more importantly, how does it change the dynamic between you two? These are questions that so many women wrestle with, especially when they find themselves in the exhausting cycle of chasing someone who seems to take their attention for granted. Here's the truth. The moment you pull back, everything shifts. What you may not realize is that your silence creates a ripple effect, triggering psychological and emotional reactions that can alter how he perceives you and himself. This isn't about playing games. It's about reclaiming your power, prioritizing your self-worth, and letting the dynamic reveal what's truly there. The problem is we've been fed a dangerous myth for far too long, that the more you give, the more you give, the more you'll give back in return. But what if the opposite is true? What if the moment you stop chasing is the moment you start to gain clarity and confidence, not just in how he feels, but in who you are? This isn't just a strategy, it's a transformation. Today, we'll explore the 8 things a man will do when you stop talking to him. Each reaction reveals a layer of his character, his emotions, and the dynamic you share. But it's not just about him, it's about you stepping into your own power. So, if you've been wondering what happens when you pull back, prepare to discover insights that could completely change how you approach relationships. Let's dive in, starting with the first and most immediate reaction: shock and confusion. 1. He feels shock and confusion. The moment you stop talking to him, the world as he knows it shifts, especially if you've been the one consistently reaching out, initiating conversations, or showing up for him in ways he's come to expect. Suddenly, the texts stop coming. His phone is quieter. That steady stream of validation, comfort, and attention he may have taken for granted has vanished. And just like that, he's left with one overwhelming question. What just happened? Think about this for a moment. Human beings are creatures of habit. We grow accustomed to patterns, especially when they benefit us. When you're constantly available, always there to cheer him up, make plans, or simply remind him of your presence, he starts to see it as normal. And when that normal disappears, it disrupts everything. He might feel a twinge of panic. Questions start flooding his mind. Did I say something wrong? Is she upset with me? Has she lost interest? This initial shock isn't just about missing your attention, it's about the loss of control. Suddenly, he's no longer in the driver's seat of the dynamic, and that can be deeply unsettling for him. But here's the key. His confusion is his to process, not yours to fix. The temptation to clarify or reassure him might arise. You might feel that pull to reach out just to make sure he knows you're still there, even if you're pulling back. But don't. This is the moment where your silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Why is this so powerful? Because it shifts the focus from his expectations to your boundaries. In essence, you're saying without words, I'm not here to fill the gaps in your life at the expense of my own peace. And that's not just a move, it's a statement. From a psychological perspective, this is where dark Stoic psychology comes into play. The principles of Stoicism remind us that we cannot control how others react, only how we respond. His shock and confusion are natural, but they're not yours to manage. Instead, this moment becomes an opportunity for you to regain emotional balance and clarity about what you truly want. Now, let's flip the perspective for a moment. What does this reaction tell you about him? His initial response to your silence can be incredibly revealing. Does he approach you with respect and curiosity, genuinely wanting to understand what's changed? Or does he lash out, showing signs of entitlement or anger? These early clues give you insight into how he processes conflict and uncertainty, a crucial window into his emotional maturity. Here's a question for you to ponder. When you pull back, is his reaction one of reflection or desperation? because the way he handles this initial shock says more about him than words ever could. Silence, when used with intention, is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. It forces him to confront the dynamic between you, to question the balance of effort and attention, and to sit with the discomfort of not having answers. And for you, it's a chance to create space for him to think, and for you to feel. If you've ever experienced this kind of reaction before, I'd love to hear your story. What did he do when you stopped reaching out? Did his actions surprise you, or confirm what you already knew deep down? Share your experience in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. But we are only just getting started, because what happens after the shock wears off? What does he do once the confusion sets in? Trust me, this is where things get even more revealing. Let's move to the next reaction and uncover how he starts reflecting on the relationship when your presence is no longer guaranteed. 2. He starts reflecting on the relationship. Once the initial shock of your silence wears off, the next phase begins: reflection. This is where things get interesting. He's no longer asking what happened. He's diving deeper into why. The absence of your voice, your attention, and your energy forces him to take a long, hard look at the connection you shared. And let me tell you, this stage can be incredibly revealing, not just for him, but for you as well. Think about it. When you step back, you create a void. That space you used to fill is now glaringly empty, and he's left alone with his thoughts. For a man, this kind of silence can act as a mirror, reflecting back every moment, interaction, and emotion he experienced with you. But here's the question: what does he see when he looks in that mirror? Does he recognize the effort and care you poured into the relationship? Does he start to regret the times he might have dismissed your needs or failed to match your energy? Or does he struggle to even acknowledge the role he played in your decision to step back? This is where dark Stoic psychology takes center stage. Stoicism teaches us the value of focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. While he's reflecting on the relationship, you're not anxiously waiting for his revelations or hoping for a specific outcome. You're grounded in your own power, confident that his reflection, whether it leads to regret, understanding, or nothing at all, is not your responsibility. But let's dig a little deeper into his mind. When a man begins reflecting on a relationship, he often starts to replay key moments. He'll think about the things you did for him, the ways you made him feel, and the energy you brought to his life. If he values what you shared, this reflection can trigger a powerful realization. He might have been taking you for granted. On the flip side, if he struggles to accept accountability or lacks emotional depth, his reflection might lead to avoidance. He may tell himself things like, "She just needs space," or worse, "It's her problem, not mine." Either way, this stage reveals the truth about how he processes challenges, and that truth can be a game changer for you. Now, let's bring it back to you. While he's sitting in this period of reflection, what should you be doing? The answer is simple: focusing on yourself. Are you clear on what you need in a relationship? Were you giving too much without receiving enough in return? Did you lose sight of your boundaries in an effort to keep things going? These are the questions that matter, not whether he's missing you or regretting his actions. By stepping into your own reflection, you're reclaiming the narrative. You're shifting from chasing answers to creating clarity. And here's a secret: when you focus on yourself, your energy shifts in ways he can feel, even from a distance. It's as if he senses that you're no longer waiting for him to make a move, and that realization alone can be incredibly powerful. Ladies, this is your moment to reset. While he's reflecting on what he may have lost, you're redefining everything you've gained by stepping back. Your peace, your power, and your perspective. So let me ask you this. What do you want him to see when he reflects on the relationship? Do you want him to remember you as someone who sacrificed your needs to keep the connection alive? Or as someone strong, confident, and self-assured, someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less. If this resonates with you, I want you to take a moment right now. Like this video and comment number 1 to let me know you're ready to embrace this power. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another insight that could transform how you approach your relationships. Because we're just getting started. His reflection is only one piece of the puzzle. What happens next? That's where things really start to get revealing. So stay with me. There's so much more to uncover. 3. He tests boundaries. Now that you've disrupted the status quo, his mind begins to race. The confusion has subsided, and he's moved into reflection. But that silence is starting to get to him. He wonders if he still has the same influence over you, if he can still pull you back into the dynamic you once shared. And this is where his next move often comes into play: testing boundaries. This behavior can show up in subtle or not so subtle ways. Maybe he sends a casual text, "Hey, been thinking about you." Or he suddenly posts something on social media that feels oddly specific, almost as if it's meant for you to see. Perhaps he even brings up an inside joke or a shared memory, something that might tug at your emotions. It's not necessarily manipulative. More often it's a way of gauging where you stand. But let me ask you this. How will you respond? This moment is critical, because it's not just about him testing you. It's about how grounded you are in your boundaries and values. It's easy to fall into the trap of reacting impulsively. Maybe you feel a surge of excitement when you see his name pop up on your phone. Maybe a wave of nostalgia hits you when he references a memory you both cherished. But remember this: your response, or lack thereof, sends a message. If you react immediately, diving back into the conversation, what does that signal to him? That he still holds the same power, that your silence was just a temporary phase, and that he can slip right back into the comfort of the old dynamic. But if you pause, reflect, and respond, if at all, from a place of calm confidence, you set the tone for something entirely different. This is where dark Stoic psychology becomes a game changer. The principles of Stoicism teach us that emotional impulsivity is the enemy of self-control. When he tests your boundaries, it's not about him. It's about you holding firm in your own emotional independence. You're not ignoring him to play games. You're standing in your power because you've realized that your worth doesn't depend on his attention. Let's paint a picture. He sends a text. Maybe it's something simple like "miss you." "Hope you're okay." It's tempting to respond quickly, to let him know that you've been thinking about him too. But what if you paused? What if, instead of reacting, you took a moment to ask yourself, why is he reaching out now? What does this mean for me? And how do I want to handle it? Your response, or your silence, should align with your values and goals. If reconnecting feels right and matches the energy you want to bring into your life, then you can respond with calm, measured words. But if his message feels like a test, a way of pulling you back into an unbalanced dynamic, then your silence can be just as powerful as any reply. Here's the thing about boundaries. They're not just lines you draw to keep others out. They're declarations of your self-respect and emotional resilience. When he tests them, he's really asking, how strong is she? Has she truly moved forward, or can I still influence her? Your ability to stand firm sends a clear message. You're not here to be pulled back into uncertainty or to provide validation on demand. You're here to protect your peace, your clarity, and your growth. This phase of boundary testing is revealing, not just about him, but about you. It challenges you to reflect on how much you've grown since stepping back. It invites you to consider how your silence has shifted the power dynamic and given you the space to prioritize yourself. So what happens if he doesn't get the reaction he's looking for? If his casual text goes unanswered, or if his social media bait doesn't reel you in, he'll feel the weight of your absence even more. He might try harder, sending more messages or escalating his attempts to get your attention. Or he might pull back entirely, realizing that he can no longer draw you into the same patterns. But here's the most important part. His reaction is his. It's not a reflection of your worth, but of his capacity to navigate the discomfort of not being in control. And that's something only he can work through. For you, this stage is a reminder of how far you've come. You're no longer the woman who bends or breaks at the first sign of attention. You're the woman who knows her boundaries, her worth, and her power. And that, my dear, is the ultimate test, not for him, but for you. 4. He seeks closure. As the silence lingers, the questions in his mind start to grow louder. The boundary testing may have failed to get the response he wanted, leaving him in an unfamiliar space of uncertainty. This is when he shifts to seeking closure, an attempt to make sense of your silence and regain some sense of control. Closure is a fascinating concept. It often appears as a need to tie up loose ends, to find a definitive answer to the question. Why? For him, your silence is no longer just a pause, it's a mystery, one that feels unresolved and increasingly difficult to ignore. He might reach out with pointed questions like, "Did I do something wrong? Why did you stop talking to me? Are you upset with me?" Or, if he's less direct, he might try to weave closure into casual conversations, testing the waters with small talk before dropping a line like, "I feel like you've been distant lately." His approach can range from gentle curiosity to frustration, depending on his emotional state and his attachment to the dynamic you once shared. But here's the crucial question for you. Do you owe him closure? The world often tells us that we do, that every ending must come with a carefully packaged explanation tied up with a neat little bow. But reality, and especially relationships, doesn't work that way. In many cases, closure is a luxury, not a necessity, and in some situations, it's a distraction. When he seeks closure, it's important to recognize what's truly happening. Is he asking these questions because he genuinely wants to understand and grow? Or is his search for answers more about easing his own discomfort, a way to soothe his ego or regain control over the narrative? From the lens of stoicism, this moment is pivotal. Stoicism teaches us to prioritize our inner peace over external expectations. You don't owe anyone an explanation that disrupts your emotional well-being. If giving him closure requires reopening wounds, revisiting old dynamics, or engaging in conversations that drain your energy, then perhaps silence is the most honest response you can offer. Imagine this scenario. He sends a heartfelt message, asking for clarity. Part of you feels compelled to respond, to explain why you pulled back, or to soften the blow of your absence. But before you do, ask yourself, what do I hope to gain by engaging? If the answer is rooted in guilt, obligation, or a desire to manage his emotions, then it's worth pausing. Closure isn't about making someone else feel better at your expense. It's about creating peace for both parties without sacrificing your own emotional health. That said, there are times when closure can be an opportunity for growth. If he approaches you with genuine vulnerability and accountability, his questions may lead to a meaningful dialogue. But even then, you hold the power to decide what you're willing to share. Here's a truth that many struggle to accept. Sometimes silence is closure. It's a statement that says, "I've moved on, and I trust you to find your own path forward." It's not about being cold or dismissive. It's about recognizing that closure isn't something you can give to someone else. It's something they must find within themselves. For him, this phase of seeking closure can be a mirror. If he's emotionally mature, he may use your silence as an opportunity to reflect on his own actions and the dynamic you shared. He may come to terms with the role he played, learning valuable lessons that shape how he approaches future relationships. But if he's not ready to take accountability, his quest for closure may turn into frustration or blame. He might try to shift responsibility onto you, saying things like, "You should have told me," or "I deserved an explanation." This too is a reflection, not of your actions, but of his readiness to face uncomfortable truths. And it's a powerful reminder that your responsibility is not to manage his emotions, but to honor your own boundaries and growth. When a man seeks closure, he's searching for answers, but sometimes those answers can only be found within. Your silence, while difficult for him to process, may ultimately be the catalyst he needs to grow. For you, this stage is an invitation to reaffirm your commitment to yourself. It's a chance to let go of the need to explain, justify, or seek validation from someone who didn't see your value when you were actively offering it. Because here's the ultimate truth. You are not responsible for his understanding of your silence. You are responsible for your peace, and that is a responsibility worth protecting. As he wrestles with the absence of your voice, you stand firm in the power of your own. This is not about withholding closure, it's about embracing the kind of emotional independence that allows you to move forward without needing to revisit the past. And that, my dear, is where your greatest strength lies. 5. He reacts emotionally. Emotions are powerful. They can guide us, confuse us, and reveal truths we often try to hide. And when you stop talking to a man, his emotional response is where you start to see his true self. This is the moment when the absence of your presence is no longer just a void. It becomes a trigger for deeper feelings he may have been suppressing or ignoring. But here's the intriguing part. Those emotions can take many forms. Will he react with frustration, sadness, or relief? Each response is a reflection of how he processes conflict, loss, and change. And for you, his reaction is a valuable glimpse into his emotional depth, or lack thereof. Let's start with frustration. It's not uncommon for a man to feel irritated or even angry when someone who once prioritized him pulls away. He might say things like, "Why are you ignoring me?" Or, "If you had a problem, you should have told me." These words may be cloaked in concern, but often they stem from ego. He's grappling with the realization that he no longer has the same control over your energy, and that loss of power can be difficult for some to handle. Then there's sadness. If he truly valued the connection, your silence might hit him on a deeper level. He might reach out with vulnerable messages, expressing regret or longing. "I miss you," or "I didn't realize how much you meant to me until now." These moments can feel genuine, even touching, but they also require discernment. Is his sadness a reflection of growth and self-awareness, or is it a fleeting response to the discomfort of not having your attention? And finally, there's relief. Yes, relief. For some men, your silence might align with feelings they were already experiencing but hadn't voiced. Maybe he was pulling back emotionally, unsure of how to end things, and your decision to stop talking feels like an unspoken agreement. This reaction can be painful to witness, but it's also a gift, a clear signal that the connection wasn't as strong as it needed to be to thrive. Here's where stoicism and its principles become essential. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. His emotional reaction, whatever it may be, is not within your control. What you can control, however, is how you choose to interpret and respond to it. If his frustration leads to blame or manipulation, take it as a sign to hold firm in your boundaries. You are not responsible for easing his discomfort, nor are you obligated to re-engage simply to soothe his ego. If his sadness feels authentic, approach it with compassion but also clarity. Remember that your silence was not an act of punishment but a declaration of self-respect. If he's willing to acknowledge his role in the dynamic and take meaningful steps toward change, there may be room for dialogue, but only if it aligns with your values and emotional well-being. And if he feels relief, let it be a confirmation that stepping back was the right choice. His reaction doesn't diminish your worth, it simply highlights where his emotional priorities lie. Let me ask you this. How often have you allowed someone else's emotional reaction to dictate your own peace of mind? This is your chance to break that cycle. Instead of being swayed by his feelings, stay rooted in your own truth. As he navigates his emotions, one thing becomes clear. Your silence is more than just an absence. It's a boundary, a statement, a shift in the dynamic. And whether his reaction is anger, sadness, or indifference, it ultimately serves as a mirror for his own emotional capacity. For you, this stage is an opportunity to practice emotional resilience. You're not cold or detached. You're simply choosing not to be pulled into a storm that isn't yours to weather. If this resonates with you, I'd love for you to let me know. Like this video and comment number 1 to show you're stepping into your power. And don't forget to subscribe to stay connected to insights that help you prioritize your self-worth and create the relationships you deserve. Because here's the truth. His emotions are his journey, but your growth, your peace, and your strength, that's entirely yours. Let's keep moving forward, because the next phase will show you exactly how this experience begins to shape the dynamic even further. 6. He evaluates your worth. As the dust begins to settle, he enters a phase that is both inevitable and transformative. Evaluating your worth. This is when the reality of your absence hits him on a deeper level. He starts to ask himself questions that weren't as obvious when you were always available. Who were you to him? What role did you play in his life? And now that you're gone, what does it mean for him moving forward? This phase is like a reckoning, where everything he once took for granted becomes sharply visible. Your kindness, your energy, the way you listened, the ways you showed up for him, all those things that he may have overlooked suddenly take on a new significance. He begins to weigh the value of your presence against the void left behind. But here's where it gets interesting. His evaluation of your worth isn't just about you. It's about him. A man's perception of someone else's value often mirrors his own sense of self-worth. If he respects himself and values meaningful connections, this period of reflection may lead to profound realizations about how he treated you and what he stands to lose. On the other hand, if he struggles with insecurity or emotional immaturity, his evaluation may be clouded by ego or defensiveness. Instead of recognizing your worth, he might rationalize your absence as something he doesn't need, or worse, attempt to downplay your significance to protect his own pride. What's fascinating about this phase is how your silence amplifies the process. By stepping back, you remove the noise, the distractions, and the patterns that might have masked his true feelings. He's left alone with his thoughts, forced to confront the reality of what it means to lose someone who once gave so much of themselves. Now, let's flip the perspective. While he's evaluating your worth, this is also a perfect time for you to evaluate his. Did he consistently meet your emotional needs? Did he treat you with the respect and care you deserved? Did the dynamic between you feel balanced and fulfilling, or were you constantly giving more than you received? These are questions worth exploring, not to dwell on the past, but to gain clarity about what you want and need in your relationships moving forward. Here's the truth that many people overlook. Your worth is not defined by his evaluation. Whether he realizes your value now, later, or never at all, it doesn't change the fact that you are inherently worthy of love, respect, and effort. His ability, or inability, to see that is a reflection of him, not you. From the lens of stoicism, this phase is a reminder to detach your sense of self-worth from external validation. As Epictetus wisely said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's opinion of you. It remains steady, grounded in your principles and the way you choose to show up for yourself. For him, this period of evaluation can be a wake-up call. If he truly values the connection, he may start to reflect on the times they could have done better, the ways he fell short, or the moments he missed the opportunity to appreciate you. This can lead to meaningful change if he's willing to take accountability. But it can also reveal the limits of his emotional capacity. If his evaluation leads to blame, deflection, or indifference, it's a clear sign that he's not ready to meet you at the level you deserve. For you, this phase is an opportunity to step fully into your power. By refusing to chase, you've shown him, and yourself, that your value isn't something he can define or diminish. And in doing so, you've set a standard, not just for him, but for every relationship you choose to engage in from this point forward. The beauty of this stage lies in its clarity. Whether he recognizes your worth or not, the act of stepping back has already shifted the dynamic in a profound way. It's not about proving anything to him. It's about affirming everything you already know about yourself. As he wrestles with what your absence means, you're not waiting for his verdict. You're moving forward, confident in the knowledge that your worth isn't something to be debated or questioned. It's a truth you carry with you, no matter who is or isn't in your life. And that realization, that's where your true power lies. 7. He reaches out again. After a period of reflection, testing boundaries, and grappling with emotions, there often comes a moment when he decides to reach out again. This is a pivotal phase, not because of his message or call, but because of how you choose to respond or not respond. His decision to reinitiate contact can be motivated by a range of emotions. Maybe he misses the connection, realizing that your absence has left a void he didn't anticipate. Perhaps curiosity drives him. He wonders why you've pulled back, why the dynamic has changed, and whether you still feel the same. Or maybe it's about regaining control, a subtle attempt to bring things back to the way they were. The method of his approach often reveals a lot about his intentions. Some men will come back with vulnerability, acknowledging the silence and expressing a desire to reconnect on a deeper level. Others might use casual, low-effort messages like, "Hey, it's been a while," testing the waters without fully committing to a meaningful conversation. And then there are those who lean on humor or nostalgia, referencing an inside joke or a shared memory to stir up familiarity and warmth. But what does this moment mean for you? The power dynamic has already shifted. By stepping back and prioritizing yourself, you've demonstrated a level of self-respect and emotional independence that he cannot ignore. His reaching out is an acknowledgement of that shift, whether he realizes it consciously or not. This is where your response becomes crucial, not because of what it means for him, but because of what it says about your own growth. If his message stirs up feelings of excitement or longing, take a moment to pause and reflect before replying. Ask yourself, what do I want from this interaction? Does his message reflect genuine effort, or is it an attempt to test my boundaries again? Am I responding out of emotional impulse, or because this aligns with my values and needs? If his approach feels authentic and considerate, you might choose to engage, but with measured calm and clarity. This doesn't mean rushing back into the old dynamic. It means setting the tone for how you want the interaction to unfold. Your response should reflect the emotional balance and boundaries you've worked to establish. For example, if his message reads, "Hey, I've missed you," a reply like, "It's good to hear from you. I hope you've been well," acknowledges his effort without overcommitting. It's polite, composed, and leaves room for further dialogue, if that's something you're open to. However, if his message feels half-hearted or disingenuous, something like "Sup," you have every right to protect your energy by not responding at all. Silence, in this case, speaks volumes. It reinforces that your attention is not freely given but must be earned through meaningful effort. From the perspective of stoicism, this is a test of your emotional discipline. Stoicism reminds us to act with reason rather than being driven by fleeting feelings. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In this context, your response, or lack thereof, should align with your inner truth and the standards you've set for yourself. For him, your measured response, or your silence, may trigger one of two realizations. Either he recognizes the need to step up and approach you with greater sincerity, or he retreats, understanding that the effort required may be more than he's willing to give. Either way, the outcome is a reflection of his readiness, or lack thereof, to meet you at the level you deserve. This phase can be bittersweet. His message might stir feelings of nostalgia or hope, but it's also a reminder of why you pulled back in the first place. Use this moment to reaffirm your priorities. Are you stepping back into a dynamic that honors your boundaries and values, or are you risking a return to the same patterns that led to your silence? Remember, his reaching out isn't the victory, it's just the next step. The real triumph lies in how you navigate this interaction, staying true to yourself and refusing to compromise on what you know you deserve. Whether the conversation leads to reconciliation, closure, or nothing at all, the power remains in your hands. By holding firm in your sense of self-worth, you're not just responding to his message, you're setting the standard for how you choose to be treated moving forward. And that's where the real transformation happens. 8. He moves forward. When all is said and done, the final phase inevitably arrives. He moves forward. But what does moving forward truly mean? And more importantly, how does this process shape both his path and yours? For him, moving forward is a response to the clarity your silence has brought into his life. Whether he acknowledges it or not, the absence of your attention forces him to confront the reality of the dynamic you shared. In this phase, his actions speak louder than words, offering insight into how he processes the shift. If he valued the connection, he may use this moment to grow. He might reflect on how he handled things, recognizing the times he fell short or took you for granted. This could inspire him to make changes, not just for you, but for himself and his future relationships. Growth is never a guarantee, but when it happens, it's a sign of emotional maturity and a willingness to take accountability. On the other hand, moving forward could mean choosing not to engage further. For some men, the realization of what they've lost doesn't outweigh their resistance to change. This isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of his readiness, or lack thereof, to evolve. What does moving forward mean for you? This is where the beauty of your decision to step back fully unfolds. While he grapples with his next steps, you've already begun your journey of rediscovery and growth. By pulling away, you've reclaimed your energy, shifted your focus inward, and created space for clarity. This phase is less about him and more about you stepping fully into your power. You're no longer defined by his reactions, his messages, or his attempts to reconnect. You've shifted the focus from external validation to inner peace, a principle rooted in dark Stoic psychology and the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. For you, this translates to, don't wait for someone else to realize your worth. Live it, embody it, and let it guide your actions. Now, let's talk about closure in the context of moving forward. True closure doesn't always come from a conversation or an explanation. Sometimes it comes from the silence itself, from accepting that not all questions need answers, and not all endings require resolution. When he moves forward, it might bring mixed emotions. Perhaps you feel a sense of relief, knowing that the chapter has closed. Or maybe you feel a twinge of sadness, a recognition of what could have been. Both emotions are valid, but neither should derail the progress you've made. This phase is your opportunity to reflect on what the experience has taught you. What did you learn about yourself, your boundaries, and your needs? How will these lessons shape the way you approach future relationships? Moving forward also means embracing the unknown. Whether or not he re-enters your life, you've already shifted the narrative. You're no longer chasing, waiting, or hoping for someone else to define your happiness. You're creating it on your own terms. And here's the truth. As you continue to prioritize your growth and self-respect, you naturally attract people who align with your energy. The effort you once poured into chasing someone else is now being channeled into your own evolution. And that shift is magnetic. For him, moving forward may come with moments of regret, flashes of what could have been. But for you, it's a journey of empowerment, a chance to step fully into the confident, radiant woman you were always meant to be. In the end, moving forward isn't just about leaving the past behind. It's about carrying the lessons with you, using them as a foundation to build something stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling. Whether he grows from this experience or not, you've already won, because you chose yourself. And that, my dear, is the ultimate victory. So, what truly happens when you stop talking to a man? The answer is more profound than you might think. It's not just about his reactions, shock, reflection, boundary testing, seeking closure, emotional responses, reevaluating your worth, reaching out, or even moving forward. It's about what these phases reveal. About him, about you, and about the dynamic you shared. Your silence isn't an act of punishment or manipulation. It's a reclaiming of your power. By stepping back, you're shifting the focus from external validation to inner clarity. You're showing him, and yourself, that your worth isn't tied to his attention, his effort, or his recognition. It's intrinsic, unwavering, and entirely your own. What this journey means for him. For a man, your silence forces him into a space of discomfort, introspection, and, potentially, growth. It reveals what he truly values, how he handles challenges, and whether he has the emotional capacity to rise to the occasion. Not all men will step up. Some will retreat, finding solace in their comfort zones. Others may test boundaries or seek closure out of ego or insecurity. And a rare few will use this as an opportunity to reflect, evolve, and meet you where you deserve to be met. But remember, his journey is his own. His reactions are not your responsibility, and his choices don't define your worth. What this journey means for you. For you, this process is about so much more than his response. It's about discovering the power of stoicism and emotional independence. It's about realizing that your happiness, peace, and self-respect don't depend on anyone else, they come from within. Think about how far you've come since the moment you decided to stop chasing. You've created space to reflect on what truly matters, to reevaluate what you deserve, and to prioritize your own well-being. You've stepped out of the exhausting cycle of seeking validation and into the empowering flow of self-acceptance. This is your moment to embrace everything you've learned. That silence isn't emptiness, it's clarity. That boundaries aren't walls. They're invitations for respect. And that your worth isn't something to be proven, it's something to be lived. Your next steps. Now that you understand the power of pulling back, how will you use it moving forward? How will you carry the lessons of this experience into your future relationships? Here's a thought. The next time you feel tempted to overextend, to explain yourself, or to chase someone who isn't meeting you halfway, pause. Breathe. Remember everything you've gained by stepping back. You're not just a woman who stopped talking to a man, you're a woman who chose herself. Join the conversation. If this journey resonates with you, I want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments, and let's create a space where women can learn, grow, and inspire each other. And if this video has given you clarity or strength, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this message today. Thank you for being part of this conversation, for prioritizing your growth, and for embracing the journey towards self-respect and empowerment. Remember, the power was always within you, it just needed the silence to be heard. Stay strong, stay radiant, and until next time, keep choosing yourself. You deserve nothing less.